Hey guys, and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be talking about MEPS, which is the Military Entrance Processing Station. So prior to MEPS, I got an email from my recruiter that basically said all the do's and don'ts of MEPS, what to wear, what to bring, what's going to happen before you enter the station, and what basically happens during it. So normally I would have to arrive at MEPS the morning of my physical, but because of coronavirus, I basically had to go to a hotel, which was basically an airport hotel, the night before, and they were going to transfer us to the MEPS station the next day. So there were specific check-in times for the hotel, and basically once you get there, you go to, I think it was on the second floor, and there is a specific room where they take your temperature and you fill out a couple forms, and those are the forms that you're going to keep with you the entire time. One of them has your recruiter's signature and his or her name. So you always have to keep that with you throughout the whole MEPS process. Once I got my temperature taken, I was transferred to another room where there were about 20 other people, and most of them seemed pretty young. We were all just sitting there with our forms and our ID, and there was someone instructing us on what's happened the next couple days and how we should act and how we should always be paying attention and everything like that. And there was also the hotel rules that were given, and basically every time you leave the hotel or you return to the hotel, you have to go to a specific room and check in or sign out, just so they know where you are and don't lose track of where you are, because apparently at these MEPS hotels, some things can occur where they lose people, and that's a whole liability. So this is their way of keeping in check of where everyone is. We were also given these meal tickets, and basically you can check mark which meal you prefer, or you could forfeit your meal ticket. I actually forfeited my dinner meal ticket because my family was there and they all wanted to have dinner with me in the lobby of the hotel, so we were able to sit outside. I don't think you're able to sit inside and eat. I also signed up for my breakfast the next morning. They also told us that there was a game room for different students to just chill and relax in, and there were different board games and stuff like that to keep people busy, just because it could get pretty boring for the number of hours that you're staying there, and they wanted people to kind of get to know each other, which I thought was good, but you always have to have your mask on. So right after this informational session, I left the hotel, so I had to sign out, and I went to CVS with my family, got some little things like deodorant, just because I'd flown in directly to the city and wasn't able to stop at my house before going to the MEPS hotel. Once I got back and ate and everything, I went to my room, put all my things away, and then there was an 8 p.m. meeting in a ballroom. And so everyone went to the ballroom. There were so many chairs, I think about 200 chairs, and they were all socially distanced 6 feet apart. So just imagine a huge ballroom with tons and tons of chairs going all the way down the back. And basically I found a spot to sit in, started talking to some of the people around me about what they were gonna do at MEPS, if they were going, like what process in their life they were in and stuff like that. So it was cool to hear about other people's stories. And then the initial person who was telling us the hotel rules came into the ballroom and told us what to expect the next morning and what our wake up time would be and when the buses were leaving. So basically he told us that we had to be downstairs in the ballroom by 3:40 a.m. and we would be able to eat there, and then the buses would leave, I think, around 4:30 a.m. After all the instruction, they also gave us different materials that we might need throughout our stay. So they had like toothpaste and floss, and that was completely optional, but I went ahead and got some of those things just because I didn't have it. I returned back to my room, and we each had individual rooms. Usually people would share, but because of COVID, they wanted to separate us, which was actually a bonus. So I showered and then I got ready for bed. It was kind of hard to sleep just because I wasn't used to the environment, and it was pretty early, but I needed to wake up at 3:15 in order to get down to the ballroom in time. So I tried my best to go to sleep, and I woke up at 3:15, made some coffee in the hotel room. They had like one of those small little coffee makers, so I made a cup there, and then I went down to the ballroom. You basically have to sign this slip saying how your stay was, and then grab a baggie full of your food and go back to one of the chairs and then just eat it. And some people were talking and stuff, but it was a little too early for me to socialize. And then in the corner they also had orange juice and coffee and water for anyone who needed that. So I actually got another cup of coffee because I knew it was going to be a long morning. So once everyone had eaten and it was time to go, we all lined up, and there were about like 200 people. So everyone lined up with all our papers and all of our belongings, and we made our way to the buses. I believe there were 2 buses, and we got on, and it took us to the MEPS Center, and that was about like a 15-minute drive, I believe. So once we got to MEPS and got off the buses, they made us stand outside for about 30-40 minutes, and there were about 2 lines. I had no idea which line was for what, so I asked the person next to me, and they also had no clue, so it made me feel a little better. But basically we're supposed to stay there in complete silence. If you talk, you're gonna get yelled at. I saw it happen. And the officers will go down the rows just taking your temperature and writing it down on one of the papers that you have with you. And then once you get your temperature taken, the line kind of progresses, and at the front of the station is when there's the security, and it's basically like TSA in an airport. You have to follow their instructions and listen very carefully, because if you don't do what they say, they might get mad. And so I saw one person who actually like didn't take something out of his pocket or something, and they made him go all the way back outside to the end of the line and wait to go back in. So definitely pay attention and do as you're told. So once I entered the building, they directed us to a storage area where there were a whole bunch of cubbies, and you basically put everything there. I left everything except for my eyeglasses and my forms that I was given, plus my identification. I was told to go to a specific room for people who were just getting their physicals done, and it was, I'm pretty sure, for Navy people only. There was a huge binder that was there, and people were passing it around, but no one was telling us to actually like read it or anything, so I had no idea that we were supposed to. And an officer came in like maybe 15 minutes later and told us that we should have read it, and the people who didn't had to go to a different room. So I was in that, and basically he gave us like a brief synopsis of what was in the book and what was to be expected. And then we checked in, and at the front desk the lady gave us like a huge folder full of different forms and papers that were going to be signed throughout the day. And this was all on the first floor, and so on the first floor are also different branches, like their offices. And then once you get to the second floor is like the cafeteria and the medical center. So I went upstairs to the medical center, where we basically check in, and then you automatically go and sit in one of the chairs to get your blood pressure checked. And so the first time I got it checked, it was too high, and that was probably because I was just nervous. So they put me in like another chair, and there were some other people also sitting there. And so I had to wait for my blood pressure to go down, and then I got it checked again. And they were pretty like nice and funny, just telling us to relax and making jokes and stuff. So it wasn't as stress-inducing as I thought it would be, but I was still pretty nervous. And I think you're only allowed to get your blood pressure checked like 2 or 3 times, otherwise you automatically get disqualified or fail the process. I'm not entirely sure how it goes, but after that they moved us to another set of chairs, basically just like moving from chair to chair in the medical center. But there were so many people waiting that there weren't enough chairs, so they moved a whole chunk of us to a separate room, where we ended up going through through this like PowerPoint presentation and signing some of the forms that we were given in that packet. And so was the urine test, and a lot of us had to pee at this point because I think it was around like 7 o'clock or 6:45 until it was the urine test, and we got to MEPS around like 5. So we had been up for a solid 4 to 5 hours at this point. And we had to pee. So for the women, there was like an entirely different room, and that included an entrance to the medical examination and an entrance to a bathroom with one stall. And so we were called up individually, and the stall had no door on it, and what you're supposed to do is you're supposed to pull down your undergarments and your pants all the way to your ankles, so the person observing could watch that we weren't like trying to do anything a little sketchy. And then we were supposed to take the pee cup, pee in it obviously, and pull up our pants and stuff while the pee cup is on the ground. And then there's like a little section on the side. It's not visible to the actual bathroom, but you go in and you give the pee cup to an officer on the other side, and they package it up, send it to get tested. So after each section, you basically get a check mark. So we had like name tags with different testing names, and you get a check mark once everything is done. So I got a check mark for that, and then I went to get my eyes checked, and it's basically like going to the optometrist. They do all the different visual tests, and it was super easy, super casual. And then I went to go get my blood drawn. I got a little nauseous, and they were really nice about it. They gave me some water, which was super nice, and then let me walk around the area for about like 10 minutes while they talked to me, and like we were just being like super chill, and they're like playing music and stuff, so it wasn't stressful at all. There are some people though who were not able to get their blood drawn, so automatically you have to go home. So make sure that you are prepared to get your blood drawn. If you're scared of needles, just don't think about it, don't look at the needle, you'll get through it, it's super fast. So I also had to get my hearing test done, and I waited about an hour in one of the chairs just to get it tested because there was no one like observing that testing area, and so I was just sitting there with like one other girl waiting for it to happen, but finally one of the optometrists went in and observed us. So basically you go into like this dark room and you put on these headphones, and you hear all these faint noises, and you have to tap a button every time you hear a faint noise. So it came to the point where I didn't even know if I was hearing a noise or not. I was just tapping it because I couldn't tell. It was just so hard to tell. Just try your best. Luckily I passed, so it was fine. So after you're done doing your visual, your blood, your pee, and your hearing, you're able to go to the physical like examination room, and we had to strip down into our undergarments, get weighed, and then we had to line up side by side. So this is all females, and then the males have their separate wing. And we have to do all these like physical movements. It was really odd, but I guess it just like tests out your flexibility and how your joints move. So it was pretty easy to get cleared for that. The doctor was just watching us and like telling us what to do differently and stuff, and then check marking us on our forms. So after that, we get to put on like these gowns, and individually went into the doctor's office and had our physical exam. And so she just kind of asked us questions, did like a little bit of like tests. It wasn't terrible. It was just going to like the doctor's office like normally, getting your physical done, and then she marks you off, and I redressed and then went outside to the main area where someone else checked all my forms and said I was cleared to go. So luckily that happened, and the cafeteria was right down the hall, so they told us to go get food because it was around lunchtime. Everyone was super hungry because there was just so much waiting time, and you aren't allowed to like get food in between or get water. So I went and got a sandwich and like some chips, and then I went down to the first floor again and went to the Navy branch and showed them my papers and stuff, and they basically said that I needed to go get my fingerprints scanned, so I went to a separate room for that, got all my fingerprints scanned and sent over. And the Navy officer said that I was good to go and I needed to get my belongings. So basically every branch will open the storage door for you. You can't really get in yourself, so you have to get them to open it. And I saw like for some of the other branches, they were taking a really long time opening the doors for people. Luckily, it wasn't hard for me to get the door open and get my stuff, but I saw people just waiting there for like 20 minutes and no officers were coming to get it. No officers were coming to open the door for them, so that really sucked, but it's just based on luck, I guess. So then I got my stuff, called my recruiter to see if there was anything else I needed to do, because obviously I didn't want to go back and have to repeat the process. And so called him, make sure everything was good, and then called my family to pick me up. So basically you have to wait inside the whole entire time, and then right as my family member showed up to pick me up, I had to go back to the Navy office and tell them that I was leaving and that I had everything. And I left, and then I scanned all my medical sheets and papers and sent them to my recruiter so that he had everything and we were good to go. So that was basically it on my MEPS experience. I know a whole bunch of people had different experiences than me, and I didn't think it was too bad at all. I got out at about 12:30-ish, so it was pretty good timing. They don't really tell you how long you're gonna stay there. Sometimes you stay there until like 9 p.m. at night, who knows? But luckily it was totally fine and everything went smoothly, except for the blood pressure, but it went smoothly. If you have any questions, just leave them below and I will try and answer them. But thank you guys for watching and give this a thumbs up.